The Rotary Club of Greater Nashua is celebrating its centennial this year. Once a month, the club is celebrating highlights from each decade. These are the highlights from 1921 to 1930.
Well, we're on to the program. So I introduce for the final time Jane Marquis and Paige Holtzman to bring us the 100th anniversary program, the first decade, 1921 to 1930.
This is the Nashua Rotary Club 100 year celebration, 1921 to 1930, and we start with our emblem, service above self. We're going to go through the presidents, and it's a very interesting story about the presidents in this decade.
So this is just some information on the first Rotary meeting, May 5th, 1921. A group of Nashua businessmen and professionals met at the Red Cross workrooms in City Hall. Addresses were given by Hovey P. Slatton, Charles W. Tobey, he past president of the Manchester Rotary Club. After the talks, it was decided by vote that it would be advisable to form a Rotary Club in Nashua. Harry A. Gregg was elected a temporary chairman right in the beginning. So the scene, the scene was very similar to 16 years prior in Chicago when the actual first Rotary meeting was, the first Rotary group was formed in 1905. So that's how it all started, right? In City Hall is an old picture of City Hall right here. There's some more information people want to read through after. They nominated a committee, President Ira Francis Harris, Vice President Ivory C. Eaton, Treasurer James B. Crowley, Secretary Edwin Morey, some directors, William Sullivan, Archie Pollard, William Cadwell, Oscar Flather, Henry Savine, and Sergeant at Arms Eaton D. Sargent.
So these were real founding and charter members. And then it goes on, you'll notice so many of these names, we were saying as a committee when we developed this program, they're still seen in Nashua today, and so many of them have names of streets or they were businesses. Nashua Rotary was the 963rd club to be chartered by Rotary International. All right, Paige. Nashua City Hall on the other side of Main Street, 1843 to 1940. So almost 100 years it was on the other side, and when you look at this photo on the left, it tells you that the photo was taken around 1900. And the tiny building in the middle of the first City Hall, which is to the left, and then the Oddfellows building is the Municipal Records building. It seems both buildings were demolished in 1939. So you got to kind of wrap your head around looking at the other side of the street. We thought that was pretty interesting. So basically there's been two locations for Nashua City Hall. And the first one commenced in 1842 and was completed in 1843. It was on Main Street for 97 years.
This is a photograph that was taken shortly after the club was founded. And if you look on the left, you'll see two gentlemen. One is wearing a tie and a pin, and the one to his right is, you notice he's not wearing a suit. Also look to the right and you'll see the two gentlemen again. So they're twice in the photograph. And the way that was done, it was called a panoramic camera, and it was very popular at that time. And the camera was actually started taking a picture. Everyone had to be very, very still. And as soon as it passed the first two or three people on the left, the two gentlemen ran behind the camera over to the right and were there in time to be taken twice. Now, the fellow with the suit is our first president, Ira Harris, and the man that is accompanying him is Bill Sullivan, who is our second president. So these are the pictures taken right after. Now, the two gentlemen did not run back and start over again. They stayed where they were, and you can see them there, and they're all wearing hats. So the second photograph was probably taken, both of those photographs were taken probably at the country club or probably at the Greeley Park. Those are the only places I can think of. Now, here are some close-up shots. Some of those are members of the first Rotary Club in Nashua.
here is with few exceptions, the National Rotary Club has met on Mondays at noontime for lunch for the last 100 years, May 1921 to May 2021.
Ira Francis Harris was born in Nashua on November 8, 1855, the son of Robert and Mary Glines Harris. He attended the public schools of Nashua until 16 years of age. He lived for a short time in Jamaica Plain, Massachusetts, and in New Albany, Indiana, where he was employed for some time in the navigation of the Ohio River as an assistant pilot on a river barge. In 1875, Ira Harris returned to Nashua and took up the study of dentistry in the office of the late Dr. Luther F. Locke, where he remained for 2 years. He was then offered a position in the Indian Head National Bank, and deciding to make banking his life work, accepted. In 1886, he was made assistant cashier, and 9 years later was promoted to cashier, which place he held until his death, thus completing 44 years in the bank, which he loved and which he did so much to develop as one of New Hampshire's leading financial institutions. In June 1882, he married Mary Proctor, daughter of Joseph B. and Sarah Gage Proctor. Ira Harris never aspired to public office, but he did find time in his busy life to participate at times very actively in public affairs. For many years, he had been president of the Edgewood Cemetery Trustees. The beautiful entrance gate near the intersection of Amherst and Broad Street was designed under his direction and was his gift to the cemetery. A plaque to this effect can be seen there today. In 1916, he was elected a member of the Nashua Public Library Trustees. Mr. Harris was for many years a constant attendant and liberal supporter of the First Congregational Church. As a member of the church society, he had served in the various offices of clerk, director, and president. Fraternally, he was a Mason, being affiliated with the Rising Sun Lodge and all of the Nashua bodies of the York and Scottish Rite, also a member of the Mystic Shrines. He was deeply interested in the study of the early history of his native city, was a world traveler and amateur photographer. He shared the results of his historical studies and travel with the public through the vehicle of illustrated lectures, which brought him into immediate and wide reputation as a platform entertainer. Next slide, please. When the Nashua Country Club was about to be organized, Mr. Harris was made treasurer of the Nashua Development Company that handled the land purchase and the real estate development. He was a director of the Pennachuck Waterworks, vice president of the American Bankers Association, a member of the Fortnightly Club, and for many years was chairman of the advisory board of the Nashua Protestant Home for Aged Women. In searching out and compiling his biography, it was not possible to find everything that he took a leading part in, whether chairman, treasurer, committee man, hustling member of any organization, or amateur photographer. His advice was often asked and freely given. The 38 founding members elected Ira Harris to be their first president to lead the new Nashua Rotary Club. Here was a man who served the meaning of service above self. This is the Proctor Harris monument that's in the cemetery that I took a picture of. In early June 1921, Ira Harris, being in poor health, tendered to his resignation as president. The club accepted this with great reluctance, and on June 27th, he agreed to serve as treasurer. However, he only held this post for 2.5 months, when on September 15th, he fell victim to an attack of appendicitis and died 3 days later following surgery. He was 65 years of age.
Our second president, William Sullivan, who's a native of Lowell, he was general manager of the Pennachuck Waterworks. He later became the owner of the James B. Crowley Insurance Agency. He was a senator, and he was mayor of Nashua during the period of 1928 to 1932. He was named Citizen of the Year in 1949 also. And on a July evening in 1921, Rotary held its first Ladies' Night. The first year of Rotary was very fellowship dominated. And here there was, the Daniel Webster Highway was nearing completion. and Main Street was going to be part of that, and there would be lots of extra traffic. So there was a mock trial, all in good humor, but a mock trial, since the Nashua Rotarians had done little else but talk about being a part of the widening of Main Street. So they were charged on 4 counts of malfeasance, nonfeasance, and misfeasance in office. So this just talks about that process and just making awareness for down the expansion of Main Street.
The Red Cross gets a check. There's a final accounting of the 4th Celebration Fund. A letter received this morning by William E. Caffrey, Red Cross chairman of the Nashua branch, accompanied by a check for $258.30 from Ira F. Harris, treasurer, on the 4th of July for the 4th of July Celebration Fund. A check totaling $258.30 was given to the Red Cross. Here's an old Telegraph headline rather. Nashua cut off from wire communications. So that very first year in November, there was a 3-day storm, one of the worst in years, in which Nashua was cut off from wire communication. The city lost all electricity, was in darkness for days. Trees and power lines were down all over the city. See, the more things change, everyone, the more they stay the same. Jackson Mills was shut down, yet in spite of the terrible and almost impossible travel conditions, the Nashua Rotarians had an over 89% physical attendance. That's pretty great.
On February 20th, 1921, the mayor and board of aldermen in Nashua received an unusual letter in their morning mail. Instead of complaints of sidewalks and streets too full of snow and hundreds of other things, the writer of the letter said, "How can our organization help you solve your civic problems and relieve you of some of the burdens that are placed on you every day?" It was signed by President William Sullivan on the occasion of the 17th anniversary of Rotary International. And on the first anniversary, the Daniel Webster Highway, beginning at the Massachusetts border and running north through many cities and towns all the way to Colebrook, was dedicated May 16th at the noon meeting of the Rotary Club. Celebrating the occasion of the club's first year since founding, the meeting was attended by New Hampshire Governor Albert O. Brown and members of his council.
1922 to 23. Unfortunately, we could not find a photo of this gentleman, but as the 3rd president for our Rotary Club, Ivory Eaton was a native of Nashua whose father was the city marshal. He first learned about criminal complaints and writs and civil actions when he copied legal proceedings in longhand for the clerk of the old Nashua Police Court. A star football player in high school, he studied law, and after being admitted to the New Hampshire bar, practiced law in the native city for over 50 years. He was a man of tremendous size, once weighing well over 300 pounds. He was also a formidable opponent in the courtroom. Now, we didn't write this, we found this. We weren't sure you needed to know this, but, and then there's the Silver Cup, and we really tried. I know Paige went through so many archives. We really tried to find a photo of it. We were wondering, I think President Bill said maybe the Silver Cup is somewhere with the Paisano Cup. But a Rotary conclave was held in New London, Connecticut during the week of September 10th to the 16th, 1922. And the Nashua Club was awarded a Silver Cup for the largest percentage of attendance at meetings for the year. The cup was subsequently placed in the window of J.C. Mandelson's store on Main Street. Again, no photos to be had. We looked really hard. And was to remain permanently in the possession of the Nashua Rotary Club. Senator Mosley, guest tonight of Rotarians. Meeting is at Grand Mount Vernon with dinner and address. Senator Cartwright at Rotary lunch. Shoemen want new factory in this city. So the proposition formally presented to the Nashua Rotary Club was the former McElwain leaders back of enterprise. The J.F. McElwain Company found its way to Nashua in 1923 from Boston. During its first year of production, an estimated 5.5 million pairs of shoes hit the market.
Rotary meets radio. On October 26th, Nashua Rotarians were at the Medford Hillside in Massachusetts, producing the first radio program to be arranged by the Rotary Club in New England. The program featured musical entertainment under leadership of Major Ivory Eaton at the Nashua Country Club, there was a radio supper prior to the opening of the program. Rotarians listened over the radio to the story of Rotary delivered by the Reverend Niles. Eaton Sargent led a group of Rotarians in Rotary songs. The program was well advertised and was listened to by Nashuans who also had radio receivers. And then here, Keene Rotary Club, the Nashua Rotary Club assisted in the organization of the Keene Rotary Club. The charter was presented on May 24th, 1923 in Keene.
Crippled children. In January 1923, Nashua Rotary pledged $1,000 on behalf of crippled children in Nashua. This signaled the beginning of many years of work in this endeavor. In February of 23, it was the 18th anniversary of Rotary International, so the Nashua Rotary responded. And on the occasion of the 18th anniversary, at that time, there were 1,325 clubs with more than 90,000 members in 27 countries. Since its founding in 1905, no Rotary Club had ever surrendered its charter or lapsed its membership. The National Association was formed when 16 clubs held the first convention in Chicago in 1910. Hold that thought, it gets better. April 2nd, 1923 meeting, it was decided to erect a 16 by 20 foot sign in the oval at the south side of Union Station. This sign will call attention to Nashua as a residential and manufacturing committee. 1923 to 24 was President Eaton Sargent, makes you think of Sargent Avenue. Our fourth president was elected Sergeant at Arms when the club was founded. He came to Nashua as a salesman for the White Mountain Freezer Company. He was very well liked. He was friendly, genial, and a hard-working individualist. He was probably Nashua Rotary's greatest song leader. He bought the Freezer Company in 1919, served Nashua as its mayor in 1924 to 1928, later ran for his party's nomination for governor. He served Rotary as its district governor in 1925. A progressive man, he instituted the first widening of Main Street between Hollis and Pearl Streets, and he rebuilt the Main Street Bridge after the fire of 1924.
And here we found some information on the International Inner Wheel. Here is Mrs. Margaret Golding, a nurse, businesswoman, and the wife of a Manchester, United Kingdom Rotarian, started the Inner Wheel movement in 1924. Prior to 24, wives of Rotarians in many cities and towns, prompted by a concern for public welfare, had been voluntarily in the background, giving their time and energies to help in any service being undertaken by their menfolk. So in November of 23, 27 Rotary wives, led by Mrs. Golding, met in a cooling room because it was free of charge at Harriet's Turkish Baths, Manchester, England. They discussed the possibility of forming an independent ladies group run on Rotary lines. The objects of the club, they explained, would be twofold: to foster friendships and to offer much more in the way of service. The next meeting, held in the Social Club in Lower Mosley Street, Manchester, which became the regular meeting place, was on the 10th of January, 1924, and marked the actual commencement of Inner Wheel and the formation of the Manchester Club. Since 1970, January 10th has become universally recognized as World Inner Wheel Day.
1924 to 25, President Wilbur Blanchard. He was our fifth president, dean of the wholesale grocers in the Nashua area. Always interested in the welfare of the community. Bert was active in local drives and all other activities which helped make Nashua a fine place in which to live. He was president of the Board of Aldermen in Mayor Sargent's term. Arthur J. Conlon, manager of the Nashua baseball team in Central Massachusetts League, was a visitor at the Nashua Rotary Club. And he was the guest of Major Francis P. Murphy at the regular luncheon of the club, of our meeting. And this is Johnny Mitchell. He was an American professional baseball shortstop.
Our sixth president, Frank B. Clancy, was a founding member of the club. He was native of Nashua, educated at local schools, got his law degree at the University of Maine. He practiced law for 35 years, was members of all sorts of boards, Board of Education, trustee of the Nashua Public Library, president of the Bar Association. Here's just some of the articles from the Telegraph. And here, musical break. Lynn, if you'd like to take it away.
Thanks, Paige. Well, when you think of the Roaring 20s, most people think of Elliot Ness, Al Capone, Prohibition, but it was really much more than that. The novelist F. Scott Fitzgerald called the 1920s the Jazz Age. If you've read The Great Gatsby or seen the film adaptations, then you have a glimpse of what life was like for the haves and the have-nots. With its earthy rhythms, fast beat, and improvisational style, jazz symbolized the decade's spirit of liberation. New dance styles arose involving spontaneous bodily movements and closer physical contact between partners. The 1920s was, in fact, a decade of deep cultural division. A more cosmopolitan, modernist, urban culture was pitted against a more provincial, traditional, rural one. The decade witnessed a titanic struggle between an old and a new America, as well as the rise of a modern consumer economy and mass entertainment. The nation's music reflected these themes. The blues craze erupted in 1920. This music became part of the Harlem Renaissance, a revival of African-American culture that included music, dance, art, fashion, literature, theater, and politics. Blue Skies, today's musical interlude, is a song that was written by Irving Berlin in 1926. Listed as one of the most popular songs of the 1920s, it's one of many that use a bluebird of happiness as a symbol of cheer. The sunny optimism of the lyrics is undercut by the tune in a minor key, giving the words a feeling of irony. Take it away, Mindy.
Blue skies, smiling at me, nothing but blue skies do I see. Bluebird singing a song, nothing but bluebirds all day long. Never saw the sun shining so bright, never saw things glowing so bright, noticing the days hurrying by. When you're in love, my how they fly. Blue days, all of them gone, nothing but blue skies from now on.
Here in 1926 to 27, President Thomas J. Dowd. In 1926, the club held a family night. There were 160 people present, including members, wives, and children. The youngest person was the 6-year-old son of Judge Frank B. Clancy. One of the members brought his entire family of 16. Reverend Earl Nas, district governor, came to visit. A demonstration of the workings of the telephone switchboard were given, which drew big crowds.
And then 1927 to 28, President Horace E. Good started Osgood's in 1902. So Osgood's represents service to the area residents since 1902. It didn't even shut down until 1999. So Horace passed away in 1937 at the age of 61. He had a wife and 3 children. His son, Roger H. Osgood, took over the store after Horace's passing, and then his son, Roger H. Osgood Jr., was a past president of our Nashua Rotary Club, 1979 to 80. 1928 to 29, President Peter Desatel, he was the manager of the Nashua Agency of the Metropolitan Life Insurance Company. He had a warm disposition and a host of friends. Mr. Desatel participated prominently in communal activities. He was an honorary member of the Rotary Club and past state president of the New Hampshire Life Underwriters Association.
President Rupert G. Jeffrey? Yep, sorry. Here's just some articles from his year. We were kind of missing some information in these last few years of the decade, but we did find articles in the Telegraph. The first woman elected to the Board of Education came and spoke. Official district governor came to speak about his recent trip to Europe and the Near East. While he was there, he visited many Rotary clubs. A representative from the Tokyo Rotary came to visit. And President Rupert Jeffrey, there was an article that he had left for the convention of Rotary in Dallas, Texas. The conventions and the dates are there. So that was big news.
And then the last president of that decade that we're outlining is President Arthur A. Janot. And he was, his family started as farmers, and then they became, they owned markets, and we all know Janot's Market. Well, many of us here in Nashua do. It was his brother who started that, but he had been part of the family farm and then moving forward. Mrs. Anderson was the guest of Rotarians. She was, spoke of the great interest she took in the city and stressed the magnificent chapel in the Edgewood Cemetery erected in memory of her husband, Frank E. Anderson. It's right here. When I talked about that convention earlier, I said, just hang on, you gotta watch this. And then we thought we'd include in this for archival purposes, the 100 years of presidents. So they're in one place, you know, by year. And then we just want to thank you for being a part of these whenever we present them each week. It's been so much fun, labors of love, and just a blast. And I couldn't have asked for a better committee. And thank you.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.